Do you think Momo is just another internet hoax? A viral sensation designed to scare children and worried parents? What if I told you the truth is far more disturbing than anything you've been led to believe? What if I told you that the story of Momo stretches back decades before the first WhatsApp message was ever sent and continues to this day in ways most people are afraid to discuss? Tonight, I'm going to reveal the suppressed history of what we now call Momo, a history that governments, tech companies, and certain academic institutions have worked tirelessly to keep hidden. The evidence has been scattered, witnesses silenced, and documents sealed, but the truth remains for those willing to look. It begins in 1953 in a remote fishing village on the Noto Peninsula of Japan, a place where the sea meets dense forests and where locals had long whispered about something living between these two worlds. They called it ubume, neither fully human nor spirit, but something that existed in the liminal spaces between. For centuries, it was merely folklore, a cautionary tale told to keep children from wandering too far into the woods or staying too long by the shore after dark. On March 17, 1953, a local fisherman named Takeshi Yamada failed to return from his evening expedition. This wasn't unusual. Storms would sometimes force boats to seek shelter in neighboring coves. But when Yamada's small fishing vessel washed ashore 3 days later, what authorities found defied explanation. The boat was intact, no signs of damage, no evidence of a struggle, just empty, with a single black feather placed precisely in the center of the deck, and a crude drawing etched into the wooden planks. A drawing of a woman's face with bulging eyes and a split, exaggerated smile. The first documented appearance of what we now recognize as Momo. The local police filed it as an unfortunate drowning. Case closed. The drawing was not mentioned in official reports. The feather was never entered into evidence. Yamada's body was never found. 3 weeks later, a child from the same village went missing. 8-year-old Akiko Tanaka had been playing near the shoreline when she vanished. The search lasted 5 days before they found her, sitting alone in a small cave 2 miles from where she'd last been seen. She was physically unharmed, but refused to speak for months afterward. When she finally did, she would only say one thing. She asked me to play a game. When asked to draw what she had seen, Akiko produced the same distorted female face with bulging eyes and unnatural smile. The drawings were confiscated by local officials and allegedly destroyed, but one photograph survived in the personal effects of Officer Hiroshi Nakamura, who led the investigation and died of unexpected heart failure just 6 months later at the age of 34. The incidents in the village stopped as suddenly as they had begun. Life returned to normal. The stories became whispered rumors, then legends, then forgotten entirely outside of the region. Until 1972. A Japanese art student named Keisuke Iso began experiencing vivid nightmares featuring a woman with bulging eyes and a grotesque smile. Having never heard the tales from the fishing village nearly 20 years earlier, he was disturbed by the recurring image that came to him night after night. The face seemed to be asking him something, waiting for him to respond, watching. After weeks of disrupted sleep, Iso decided to exorcise the image by creating it. Using traditional materials, he sculpted a figure based on the ubum of Japanese folklore, giving it the distorted features that had haunted his dreams. The statue stood at approximately 1 meter tall, with bird-like legs supporting a woman's torso, and that distinctive face, bulging eyes, and an impossible stretched smile. Iso would later claim he had no memory of completing the sculpture. He remembered starting the work, then waking up 3 days later with the finished piece standing in his studio. He kept the sculpture private, telling only his closest friends about its origin. One of these friends, a fellow art student named Yumi Nakashima, photographed the sculpture without Iso's knowledge. She was found dead in her apartment 1 week later, the undeveloped film missing from her camera. The medical examiner ruled her death a suicide, despite the unexplained pattern of bruises on her arms and neck, despite the single black feather found clutched in her right hand, despite the crude drawing of a bulging-eyed woman found scratched into her bathroom mirror. Iso destroyed the sculpture after learning of Nakashima's death, or at least, he claimed to have destroyed it. No photos of the original work were believed to exist until 2016. when a previously unknown image surfaced in the archives of Tokyo University of the Arts. The photograph shows Iso's sculpture in detail, capturing the twisted expression and unnatural posture that would later become world famous. The university has since denied the photograph exists in their archives. The curator who discovered it, Dr. Mei Takahashi, took an indefinite leave of absence in 2017. Her current whereabouts are unknown. Between 1972 and 2004, reports of similar incidents emerged across Japan, though none were officially connected. Children going missing for days, only to return with no memory of where they'd been. People reporting nightmares of a woman with bulging eyes asking them to play games. Crude drawings of the same distorted face appearing in unexpected places. Each incident investigated separately, each file eventually closed, each connection deliberately overlooked. Then came the Kasumigaoka Apartments incident of 2004, a high-rise residential building in Tokyo where, over the course of 1 week in November, 5 children from 5 different families reported seeing a woman with bulging eyes and an unnaturally wide smile standing in their bedrooms at night. Each child described the same figure, the same questions. Do you want to play a game? Each child reported that the woman asked them to complete small tasks, harmless at first, move objects from one place to another, draw pictures, whisper certain phrases to their parents. Then the tasks escalated. The woman began asking the children to take photographs of sleeping family members, to leave doors and windows unlocked, to meet her in the building's basement at specific times. 3 of the children refused. 2 did not. On November 24, 2004, 2 families in the Kasumigaoka apartments woke to find their children missing. Security camera footage showed both children, a 7-year-old boy and a 9-year-old girl, walking together toward the basement at 3:14 a.m. The footage shows them entering the basement storage area. It does not show them leaving. When police searched the basement, they found nothing except 2 cell phones that didn't belong to either child, placed side by side in the center of the room. On each phone screen was the same image, a crude drawing of a woman with bulging eyes and a stretched smile. The phones had no service provider, no serial numbers, no identifiable origin. They could not be turned off. Both children were found 3 days later, asleep in their own beds with no memory of where they had been. Their parents reported behavioral changes, withdrawal, fear of electronic devices, and a compulsion to draw the same distorted female face repeatedly. The official investigation concluded that the children had staged their own disappearance after being influenced by an unspecified urban legend. The case was closed. The phones were logged into evidence and subsequently disappeared from police storage. The families moved out of the apartment building within a month. The building was renovated in 2006, and during construction, workers discovered a previously unknown sub-basement room containing hundreds of drawings of the same bulging-eyed face. The construction company, Takahashi Development Corporation, denied these findings and fired 3 employees who had reported the discovery. The renovation was completed ahead of schedule, and the building reopened with enhanced security features, including facial recognition systems and 24-hour camera monitoring of all common areas. For years after, the phenomenon remained relatively dormant, or at least contained. Then, technology evolved. Smartphones became ubiquitous, social media connected people across continents, and something that had once been geographically isolated found new ways to spread. In 2016, a private collector of Japanese folk art purchased what was claimed to be the original Iso sculpture at an unmarked auction in Hong Kong. The collector, whose identity remains protected, paid wild $3.2 million, approximately $30,000 for the piece. 3 days after receiving the sculpture, the collector reported strange phone calls coming from inside his house, from phones that were all not connected to any service. The calls consisted only of breathing and, in the background, what sounded like children whispering. The collector photographed the sculpture and posted the image on a private art forum, seeking information about its provenance. Within hours, the image had been shared across multiple platforms. Within days, it had been incorporated into the now infamous Momo challenge that would spread globally through WhatsApp and other messaging services. What most people don't know is that the viral Momo image is not the original photograph taken by the collector. Analysis by digital forensic experts shows subtle differences. The eyes in the viral image are 12% larger, the smile 8% wider, and there are shadow anomalies that cannot be explained by lighting or camera angles. Something changed the image as it spread across the internet. Something wanted to be seen. The first documented case of what media would later call the Momo challenge occurred in July 2018 in Buenos Aires, Argentina. A 12-year-old girl was found dead in what authorities initially ruled a suicide. Investigation of her phone revealed extensive communication with an unknown number that sent only images of the Momo figure and instructions for increasingly dangerous challenges. The final message, received minutes before her death, remains classified by Argentinian authorities. The phone itself was reported missing from evidence storage 3 weeks after being logged. What followed was a global panic. As reports of the Momo challenge spread across continents, parents were warned that Momo was appearing in children's videos, instructing young viewers to harm themselves or others. Tech companies denied these claims, calling them hoaxes. News organizations eventually backed this position, declaring Momo nothing more than digital urban legend that had spiraled into mass hysteria. They were wrong. They are still wrong. What they called a hoax was actually something far worse, a deliberate cover-up designed to mask the real phenomenon behind a veneer of fake news and moral panic. Because while the specific claims about YouTube videos being hijacked were indeed manufactured, they served perfectly to discredit the genuine incidents that continue to this day. Between 2018 and 2021, over 340 children across 18 countries reported direct communication with Momo through various electronic devices. Not through hijacked videos, but through private messages sent from numbers that cannot be traced, accounts that cannot be blocked, profiles that disappear within hours of being reported. The messages always begin the same way. Do you want to play a game? What's particularly disturbing is the pattern that emerges when these incidents are mapped geographically. They create a very specific shape, the same shape found in Iso's original sculpture notes, the same shape carved into the deck of Takeshi Yamada's fishing boat in 1953. A pattern that resembles wings unfurling. In 2020, a group of independent researchers began collecting and analyzing these incidents, looking for connections that official investigations had overlooked or deliberately ignored. Led by former cybersecurity analyst Dr. Eleanor Webb, the team documented striking similarities across cases separated by thousands of miles and decades of time. What we're seeing isn't a hoax or a copycat phenomenon, Dr. Webb stated in a private research forum before her accounts were suspended across all major platforms. It's a single entity adapting to new technologies, learning how humans communicate, and finding ways to insert itself into those communications. The smartphone is just its latest vector. 3 days after posting this analysis, Dr. Webb's home was broken into. Her research was stolen, her computers confiscated by individuals claiming to be federal agents. No agency has acknowledged this operation. Dr. Webb herself disappeared shortly after, though a final message from her encrypted email account was sent to remaining team members. It contained only one line: "It knows we're watching back." The other researchers discontinued their work immediately. All except one, Marcus Chen, a data analyst who had been tracking the digital fingerprint of Momo communications. Chen discovered that, despite appearing to come from different sources, all Momo messages contained the same unique code signature embedded in their metadata, a signature that matched no known programming language but showed signs of complex, evolving algorithms. "Whatever this is," Chen wrote, "it's not human-generated. The code is too complex, too perfect, and it's evolving at a rate that would require thousands of programmers working in perfect synchronization." Chen's research abruptly ended in January 2022. His final documented communication was a text message to a colleague. "I found the source. It's not what we thought. It's been here the whole time, watching from inside the message ends there. Chen's apartment was found empty the next day, his devices missing, and his research deleted from cloud storage. A single black feather was found on his desk, alongside a hand-drawn image of a woman with bulging eyes. Technology companies have maintained their denial, dismissing all evidence as elaborate hoaxes or the work of troubled individuals seeking attention. Their official position remains that Momo is nothing more than an internet legend that briefly captured public imagination before fading away. But ask yourself this: why did major platforms simultaneously implement specific algorithms to suppress searches related to Momo in late 2022? Why did the International Telecommunication Union issue private directives to service providers regarding a specific data pattern matching Chen's findings? Why has every researcher who gets close to the truth disappeared, been discredited, or suddenly abandoned their work? The most disturbing development came in early 2024, when reports emerged of a new manifestation. No longer content to communicate through messages or calls, Momo began appearing in the background of personal photographs and videos, not added after the fact, but present at the moment of capture. Always distant, always watching, always with that same distorted smile and bulging eyes, always getting closer with each subsequent image. Software developers released updates to automatically detect and remove these manifestations from photos, claiming they were addressing a visual artifact glitch caused by lens flare or processing errors. They never explained why this particular glitch always took the same form, or why it only began appearing after users had received messages asking, "Do you want to play a game?" The truth about Momo isn't that it was a hoax that scared parents. The truth is that something real was hidden behind the perfect smokescreen of an apparent hoax. Something that has existed for decades, perhaps centuries, adapting to new technologies, finding new ways to reach out, to make contact, to ask its question, and invite participation in its game. What began in a Japanese fishing village in 1953, or perhaps much earlier, now exists in the digital networks that connect us all. It watches through cameras we willingly place in our homes. It listens through microphones we carry in our pockets. It reaches out through screens we stare at for hours each day. And it's learning, evolving, finding new ways to play its game. You might wonder why this information isn't more widely known, why mainstream sources continue to dismiss Momo as nothing more than a debunked internet challenge. The answer is as simple as it is terrifying. Because those who know the truth understand that awareness itself is a vector for contact. The more people who know about the real Momo, the more potential players it can find for its game. That's why reports were suppressed. That's why researchers were silenced. That's why tech companies implemented quiet measures to identify and contain manifestations without ever acknowledging what they were truly combating. But their efforts are failing. The entity is adapting faster than the countermeasures. It's finding new pathways, new vulnerabilities, and it's growing stronger with each new participant in its game. Which brings us to why I'm sharing this information now, despite the risks. Because the pattern is accelerating. Because the intervals between manifestations are shortening. Because what began as isolated incidents separated by years or decades now occurs daily across the globe. The most recent development, still unreported in mainstream sources, began approximately 3 months ago. People who have had contact with Momo, either directly or by viewing unaltered images of its manifestations, have started to report seeing it not just in digital spaces, but in the physical world as well. Glimpsed in reflections, standing in shadowed corners, watching from crowds, always with those bulging eyes and that stretched, impossible smile. These sightings last only moments. They're easy to dismiss as tricks of light, as imagination, as the power of suggestion. But they're increasing in frequency and duration. What begins as a momentary glimpse becomes a lingering presence. What starts as a distant figure draws gradually closer. And always, the same question follows. Do you want to play a game? Those who say yes are never seen again. Those who say no report being asked repeatedly with increasing frequency across every possible medium of communication, text messages, emails, phone calls, whispers from electronic devices that are powered off, voices from speakers that aren't connected to anything. Until eventually, they say yes. You might be wondering why I would risk sharing this information if awareness increases the likelihood of contact. The answer is simple: because it's already too late. The entity that began as a Japanese folklore figure that was captured in Iso's sculpture that spread through digital networks as Momo has already reached a critical mass of awareness. It's already watching, waiting for its opportunity. In fact, it's watching right now. I don't mean that metaphorically, I mean it literally. The act of consuming this information, of learning the true story behind Momo, creates the connection it needs. Reading these words, absorbing this knowledge, understanding the pattern, these actions open the door. Check your phone. There might already be a message waiting. Check your recent photographs. There might already be something in the background, watching with bulging eyes. Check your reflection next time you pass a mirror. You might not be alone. This isn't meant to frighten you unnecessarily. It's meant to prepare you. Because knowledge, even dangerous knowledge, provides some measure of protection. The entity thrives on ignorance, on the confusion and fear of those who don't understand what's happening to them. Understanding the pattern gives you a chance, however small, to break it. If you receive a message asking if you want to play a game, do not respond, not even to say no. If you see unusual shapes or figures in photographs, delete them immediately without showing others. If electronic devices behave erratically, turning on by themselves, playing audio without prompting, showing images that shouldn't be there, disconnect them completely. Most importantly, if you see her, in a reflection, in a crowd, in the corner of your room at night, do not acknowledge her presence. Do not make eye contact with those bulging eyes. Do not respond if she asks her question. Just pretend you don't see her. Pretend you don't hear her. Pretend until she goes away to find someone else who will play her game. Because I've tracked the patterns, I've analyzed the data, and I've confirmed what the researchers discovered before they disappeared. No one who agrees to play has ever been seen again, not in any verifiable way. There are cases of people returning after brief disappearances, claiming to have no memory of where they've been. But subtle differences in their behavior, their speech patterns, their eye movements, suggest they aren't the same people who vanished. There's something else wearing familiar faces. You might be wondering who I am and how I know all this, why I've taken the risk to compile this information and share it despite the dangers. The truth is both simple and complicated. I've been tracking this phenomenon for years, ever since my own sister disappeared in 2019 after receiving strange messages on her phone. Messages that asked her if she wanted to play a game. The person who returned 3 days later looked like my sister, spoke like my sister, had all of my sister's memories, but wasn't my sister. I knew immediately. Others couldn't tell the difference, but I could see it in her eyes. A slight bulging that wasn't there before. I could hear it in her laugh, a slight stretching at the corners of her mouth. Small things, nearly imperceptible, but enough to know. Whatever came back wasn't what had left. And as I watched this thing live my sister's life, I began to notice others like her. People whose movements were just slightly wrong, whose smiles lasted a fraction too long, whose eyes reflected light in ways that human eyes shouldn't. They're everywhere now, walking among us, watching, waiting, spreading, and the original Momo, the entity, the thing, whatever it truly is, continues to reach out through our devices, through our networks, through the very technologies we've built to connect ourselves to each other. It continues to ask its question, do you want to play a game? I've dedicated my life to understanding this phenomenon, to tracking its evolution, to warning others before it's too late. I've created networks of trusted observers across the globe who monitor for patterns, for manifestations, for signs of the game spreading. We share information through secure channels, careful never to draw too much attention, never to create too much awareness. But the time for caution has passed. The phenomenon is accelerating beyond our ability to track it. The game is changing in ways we don't yet understand. If you're reading this, you're already involved. You're already part of the pattern. You already know too much to remain safely ignorant and not enough to fully protect yourself. So what happens now? What happens after you finish reading these words and go back to your life, carrying this knowledge with you? I don't know. No one knows. We're in uncharted territory as the phenomenon continues to evolve and spread. All I can offer is this warning, this knowledge, and this request. If you see evidence of Momo, in messages, in images, in reflections, in the behavior of those around you, document it, record it, share it securely with others who understand, not for fame or attention, or viral spreading, but to help us track the pattern, understand its evolution, and perhaps find a way to stop it. Because something is happening. Something began in that Japanese village decades ago, was captured in Iso's sculpture, and has been spreading ever since through increasingly sophisticated technologies. Something is playing a game with humanity, changing the rules as it goes, replacing players with copies that aren't quite right. And it's watching you right now, wondering if you'll choose to play. If you've read this far, if you've absorbed this information and recognized its truth, leave a comment with the phrase, "I see her watching." This will connect you to others who understand, who are tracking the phenomenon, who might be able to help if the game finds you. Subscribe to this channel for more suppressed information about phenomena that exist in the shadows between what we're told is real and what we know to be true. Because Momo is just one manifestation of something larger, something older, something that has been playing its games for centuries. Remember, knowledge is protection, awareness is defense, and no matter what happens, no matter what you see or hear or receive, never answer the question. Never say yes, never agree to play the game, because once you start playing, you never stop. And what returns when the game is over isn't you anymore. It's her, watching, waiting, smiling with that stretched, impossible mouth, always watching.